The night was quiet, the hum of distant traffic the only sound cutting through the stillness. Elon Musk adjusted his coat against the chilly breeze as he stood at a dimly lit bus stop. His car had broken down a few blocks away, and while his team scrambled to send a driver, he decided to wait here, blending into the mundanity of the world for once. It wasn't often that he found himself in such an unremarkable setting, and he almost found it refreshing until he noticed the small figure sitting on the bench a few feet away. At first, he thought it was a trick of the flickering streetlight. A little girl, barely 9 or 10, sat huddled on the bench, her shoulders shaking slightly. Elon squinted, unsure if she was laughing or crying, but the soft, muffled sound that reached him made it clear. It was the latter. She was crying. He hesitated. Approaching a child, especially at night, could be tricky, and he didn't want to startle her. But something about her small, trembling frame stirred an ache in his chest. What was a child doing here alone and crying at this hour? Glancing around and seeing no one else nearby, he decided to approach. Clearing his throat gently to announce his presence, he stepped closer. "Hey," he said softly, keeping his tone as non-threatening as possible. "Are you okay?" The girl flinched and wiped at her face quickly, as if trying to hide her tears. She glanced up at him with wide, wary eyes. In the dim light, Elon could make out her flushed cheeks and the dark streaks of tears on her face. She said nothing, just clutched her knees tighter to her chest. "I don't mean to bother you," he continued, taking a careful step closer. "But it's late, and you're all alone out here. Is there someone I can call for you?" Her lips pressed into a thin line, and she shook her head quickly, still refusing to speak. Elon crouched slightly to her level, maintaining a respectful distance. "My name's Elon," he said, offering a small smile. "I was just waiting here for a ride, and I noticed you seemed upset. Do you need help?" This time, she spoke, her voice small and shaky. "I'm fine." It was the kind of "I'm fine" that wasn't fine at all, and Elon knew better than to push too hard. "It's okay if you don't want to talk to me," he said gently. "But I'm worried about you sitting here all alone. Are you sure there's no one I can call? A parent, maybe?" The mention of parents broke her fragile composure. Her face crumpled, and she let out a soft, hiccuping sob. Elon froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. He wasn't exactly known for handling emotional situations, but he couldn't just stand there while this child cried. He sat down on the far edge of the bench, leaving plenty of space between them. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice softer now. "I didn't mean to upset you." She sniffled and wiped her face with the sleeve of her too thin jacket. After a long pause, she spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're gone? Who's gone?" Elon asked gently. "My mom and dad," she said, her voice breaking. They died in a car crash a few months ago." The weight of her words hit him like a punch to the gut. He glanced at her again, noticing the exhaustion in her young face, the way her small hands clenched her knees as if holding herself together. She was too young to carry this kind of pain. "I'm so sorry," he said after a moment. The words felt inadequate, but they were all he had. The girl took a deep, shaky breath. "I live with a foster family now," she said, her tone flat, as if reciting facts she didn't want to think about. "But they don't like me much. I just wanted to get away for a little while." Elon's heart ached at her words. He thought about his own kids, safe and cared for, and the sharp contrast of this little girl's reality. "That's a lot to deal with," he said, his voice steady but kind. "You're really brave, you know that?" She looked at him then, her eyes shimmering with fresh tears. "I don't feel brave. Sometimes the bravest people don't," Elon said. "But just talking to me about this shows how strong you are." For the first time, a flicker of something like hope crossed her face. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Elon didn't know what he could do for her yet, but one thing was certain. He wasn't going to leave her here alone. Not tonight, and not ever again if he could help it. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains of a modest but warm apartment. Mia stirred awake, momentarily disoriented by her unfamiliar surroundings. The events of the previous night came rushing back. Her tearful encounter with the kind stranger at the bus stop, his reassuring words, and the unexpected ride to a place that felt safe. She glanced around the cozy guest room she'd been offered and noticed a small note on the nightstand. "Good morning, Mia. Take your time to settle in. Breakfast is in the kitchen. If you need anything, call Sarah." Elon. The name still sounded strange to her. Elon Musk, the man whose face she'd seen on the news and in magazines, was somehow tied to her now. She didn't understand why someone so important would care about her. A foster kid and nobody. But the warmth of his actions softened some of her lingering skepticism. In the kitchen, Sarah, the woman Elon had asked to look after Mia temporarily, greeted her with a kind smile. "Good morning, sweetheart. I made pancakes. I thought you might like something sweet after a tough night." Mia nodded shyly, her appetite hesitant but present. As she nibbled on a pancake, Sarah chatted lightly, not prying into Mia's life, but creating a comfortable atmosphere. For the first time in what felt like forever, Mia felt a small sense of normalcy. Later that day, Elon arrived, his usual suit swapped for a casual sweater and jeans. He looked less intimidating than the man she'd seen on TV. "Hey, Mia," he said gently, crouching slightly to her level. "How are you feeling today?" She shrugged. "Better, I guess. Thank you for everything." Elon smiled, relieved to see some of the tension lifted from her face. "You don't need to thank me," he said. "I just want to make sure you're okay. And I'm not going anywhere until we figure things out for you." Mia's gaze flicked to the floor, her uncertainty evident. "Why are you helping me?" she finally asked. "You don't even know me." Elon thought for a moment before replying. "Because I was in the right place at the right time. And because I've seen how much potential you have. You remind me of someone I used to know. Someone who had big dreams, but didn't always have the support they needed." Mia didn't fully understand his answer, but the sincerity in his voice made her want to trust him. For now, she decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. Over the next few days, Elon worked behind the scenes to learn more about Mia's situation. He reached out to social workers, ensuring she was placed in a safe environment, and began exploring long-term options to support her. But he also took the time to get to know her personally. He brought her books on robotics and engineering after she mentioned her love for tinkering with gadgets. One evening, he even showed her how to build a simple circuit, laughing when she figured it out faster than he expected. "You're a natural," he said, watching her eyes light up with excitement. "Have you ever thought about becoming an engineer?" Mia shrugged, her enthusiasm dampened by reality. "I used to. My dad and I used to build stuff together. But I don't think I can now. People like me don't get to do things like that." Elon's expression grew serious. "Mia, you're one of the smartest kids I've met. Don't ever let anyone, including yourself, tell you what you can't do." The words stuck with her, lingering in her mind long after he left that evening. For the first time in months, Mia allowed herself to imagine a future beyond just surviving. A few days later, Elon surprised her with an outing to a local robotics workshop. At first, she hesitated, worried she wouldn't belong there, but Elon's encouraging smile reassured her. As she stepped into the workshop, her eyes widened at the array of tools, machines, and half-built robots scattered around the room. One of the engineers approached her, smiling warmly. "You must be Mia. Elon's told us a bit about you. Want to give this a try?" Tentatively, she joined a small group working on a robotic arm. Within minutes, she was engrossed, her sharp mind picking up concepts with ease. The other engineers exchanged impressed glances as Mia asked thoughtful questions and offered ideas that even seasoned professionals found insightful. When they left the workshop that evening, Mia was buzzing with excitement. "That was amazing," she said, her face lit up with the kind of joy Elon had been hoping to see. "You belong in places like that," he told her. "And I'm going to make sure you have every opportunity to go as far as you want." For Mia, this marked the beginning of something new. It wasn't just the resources Elon provided. It was the belief he had in her, a belief she was starting to feel for herself. For the first time since her parents' death, she felt a spark of hope, and she wasn't going to let it go. Mia's new school was everything Elon had promised: spacious classrooms, state-of-the-art facilities, and teachers with impressive credentials. When she first walked through its halls, her awe was quickly replaced by unease. The other students moved in clusters, their designer clothes and polished confidence highlighting just how out of place she felt. Mia, in her secondhand jeans and thrift store sneakers, kept her head down, clutching her bag tightly as if it were a shield. The first few weeks were tough. Her classmates were polite but distant, their curiosity about the foster kid clear in their stolen glances and whispered conversations. Some were outright dismissive, questioning her presence in an elite institution. She probably got in on some charity thing, Mia overheard one girl saying, the words stinging more than she wanted to admit. Academically, the transition was no easier. The curriculum was far more rigorous than anything she'd experienced before, and the pressure to keep up was overwhelming. Late nights spent poring over textbooks and solving endless equations left her exhausted, and no matter how hard she tried, she felt like she was always one step behind. One particularly grueling day, Mia found herself on the verge of tears in the school library. Her math homework lay unfinished before her, the problems blurring together as frustration built in her chest. She was about to give up when her phone buzzed with a message from Elon. "How's my future engineer doing today? Remember, progress, not perfection." The message was simple, but it gave her the push she needed to keep going. She wiped her eyes and returned to her work, determined to figure it out, even if it took all night. Elon's support didn't end with encouraging messages. Every weekend, he made time to check in on Mia, either visiting her or inviting her to his SpaceX office. During one of these visits, Mia finally voiced her insecurities. "I don't belong there," she admitted, her voice small. "Everyone's smarter, richer, better." Elon leaned forward, meeting her gaze with a seriousness that startled her. "Mia, when I first started SpaceX, people told me I didn't belong in aerospace. They said I wasn't smart enough, that I didn't know what I was doing. But here's the thing. Belonging doesn't come from where you start. It comes from what you're willing to fight for. And you've already proven you belong, just by showing up every day." The words stuck with her. Slowly, Mia began to shift her mindset. She stopped comparing herself to others and focused on her own progress. With Elon's help, she developed a study plan that played to her strengths. He even arranged for a tutor to help her with the more challenging subjects. Bit by bit, she began to catch up, then excel. Mia's teachers noticed the change. Her math teacher, Mr. Langston, was particularly impressed. One day after class, he pulled her aside. "Mia, I want you to know how far you've come. Your problem-solving skills are exceptional, and your curiosity is refreshing. Have you ever considered joining the robotics club?" The idea thrilled and terrified her. Part of her wanted to say no, afraid of stepping into yet another unfamiliar space. But Elon's words about fighting for her place echoed in her mind, and she agreed to give it a try. The robotics club became a turning point. Surrounded by students who shared her passion for building and creating, Mia found herself in her element. For the first time, she wasn't the foster kid or the outsider. She was just Mia, the girl with a knack for seeing solutions others missed. Her designs and ideas quickly gained attention, and by the end of the semester, she was leading her team in a school-wide robotics competition. The competition was intense, with teams from all over the district vying for the top prize. Mia's team faced setbacks, a motor that refused to work, a coding error that almost derailed their entire project. But Mia's determination kept them going. On the day of the finals, their robot performed flawlessly, earning them first place and a standing ovation from the audience. As Mia held the trophy, a wave of emotions washed over her. Pride, disbelief, and a deep sense of belonging. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. Later that evening, she called Elon to share the news. "We won," she said, barely able to contain her excitement. "I can't believe it. I actually did it. I never doubted you for a second," Elon replied, his voice warm with pride. "But remember, this is just the beginning. There's so much more you're capable of." Mia hung up, her heart full. She still had challenges ahead, but for the first time, she believed she could overcome them. With Elon's unwavering support and her own growing confidence, she was ready to face whatever came next. The day the media discovered Mia's story began like any other. She was working on a science project in her room when Sarah, her temporary guardian, called her downstairs. The TV was on, the local news anchor enthusiastically talking about Elon Musk. Normally, that wasn't surprising. Elon was always in the news. But this time, they were showing a photo of him walking with Mia outside the SpaceX headquarters. Mia froze at the sight of herself on the screen. The news anchor's voice was brimming with intrigue. Sources close to Musk report that the tech mogul has taken a personal interest in mentoring a young girl from the foster system. While the details remain unclear, insiders say he's made significant efforts to support her education and future aspirations. Sarah turned to Mia, her expression a mixture of concern and curiosity. Did Elon mention anything about this? Mia shook her head, her heart pounding. She immediately called Elon, who answered on the second ring. I saw the news, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. What's going on? Elon sighed. I'm sorry, Mia. I didn't want this to happen. Someone must have leaked the story. I'll handle it, I promise. Despite his reassurances, the news spread like wildfire. Within hours, major outlets picked up the story, and Mia's name began trending on social media. People were fascinated by the idea of Elon Musk mentoring a foster child, and opinions flooded in from all corners of the internet. Some praised his kindness, calling him a hero. Others questioned his motives, accusing him of using Mia for PR. The attention was overwhelming. At school, Mia found herself thrust into the spotlight. Classmates who had barely acknowledged her before now wanted to sit with her at lunch or partner with her on projects. Teachers looked at her with newfound admiration, and the robotics club celebrated her as a local celebrity. But the sudden attention felt suffocating. Mia hated the idea that people might think she hadn't earned her place, that her achievements were only recognized because of Elon. That evening, she vented her frustrations to him over the phone. I don't want people thinking I'm just some charity case, she said, her voice shaking. I've worked so hard, and now it feels like none of that matters. Elon listened patiently before replying. Mia, I understand how you feel. The world is always going to have opinions, and you can't control that. What you can control is what you do with this attention. People are watching you now, and that gives you a platform to show them who you really are. Not because of me, but because of you. His words gave her something to think about, and over the next few days, Mia began to adjust to her new reality. When a journalist reached out for an interview, she hesitated but ultimately agreed, determined to tell her story on her own terms. Sitting across from the reporter, she spoke candidly about her journey, from losing her parents to finding her passion for engineering. She made it clear that while Elon had given her opportunities, her success was a result of her own hard work and determination. The interview aired to widespread acclaim, and Mia's authenticity won over even the harshest critics. Viewers were moved by her resilience and inspired by her dreams. Soon, people from all walks of life began reaching out, offering words of encouragement and sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity. For the first time, Mia realized the power her story held, not just for herself, but for others. Elon, meanwhile, used the publicity to launch a new initiative. He announced the creation of the Foster Futures Foundation, a program aimed at providing education, mentorship, and resources to children in the foster system. At the launch event, he asked Mia to join him on stage. Initially nervous, she agreed, knowing this was an opportunity to make a difference. Standing in front of a packed audience, Mia took a deep breath and began to speak. When I first met Elon, I was lost, she said, her voice steady despite the crowd. I didn't know if I had a future, let alone one worth fighting for. But someone believed in me, and that changed everything. There are so many kids like me, kids with dreams, with potential, who just need someone to believe in them too. Her words brought the room to a standstill, and when she finished, the audience erupted into applause. The moment was captured on video and quickly went viral, sparking a wave of support for the foundation. Donations poured in, and people around the world shared stories of how Mia's speech had inspired them to take action in their own communities. For Mia, the attention no longer felt like a burden. She saw it as an opportunity, a chance to use her voice to help others like her. And though the road ahead would still have its challenges, she felt ready to face them, knowing she wasn't alone. Years seemed to pass in a blur as Mia transitioned from the shy, uncertain girl Elon had first met into a young woman filled with purpose and drive. High school was behind her now, and she was thriving at a prestigious university, pursuing a degree in engineering. Though Elon had offered to fully fund her education, she'd insisted on earning scholarships as well, determined to prove she could stand on her own. His support remained unwavering, but he respected her independence, proud of the way she was carving her own path. University life wasn't without its challenges. The coursework was demanding, and the competitive environment often felt overwhelming. Mia spent long nights in the library, poring over textbooks and sketching out designs for her projects. There were moments when the weight of expectations threatened to crush her. She still carried the scars of her past, the grief of losing her parents and the loneliness of being shuffled through foster homes. But each time self-doubt crept in, she thought of the people who had believed in her, especially Elon, whose words of encouragement always echoed in her mind. One night, after a particularly grueling day, Mia called Elon. "I don't think I can do this," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Everyone here is so much smarter than me. I feel like I'm faking it." Elon, who was in the middle of a late meeting, stepped away to take her call. "Mia," he said, his voice calm and steady. "Do you remember the first time we worked on a circuit together? You picked it up faster than most engineers I know. You've always had what it takes, and you've proven that over and over. Feeling like you don't belong is just fear talking. You're not faking it. You're earning it." The reassurance gave her the push she needed to keep going. Over time, Mia began to find her stride. Her professors recognized her talent, and her peers started to seek her out for advice. She poured herself into her projects, creating designs that weren't just innovative, but also practical, aimed at solving real-world problems. Her upbringing had given her a unique perspective, and she used it to develop technologies that could benefit underprivileged communities: solar-powered water purifiers, affordable prosthetic limbs, and low-cost educational tools for schools in rural areas. As her reputation grew, so did her confidence. By her third year, Mia was leading a team of students in a nationwide engineering competition. Their project, a modular shelter system for disaster relief, won first place, earning praise from industry leaders. The win was a culmination of years of hard work, and for Mia, it was proof that she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. Despite her busy schedule, Mia never forgot her roots. During school breaks, she returned to her hometown, volunteering at shelters and community centers. She often visited the robotics club at her old high school, mentoring students who reminded her of herself. It was during one of these visits that she met a young boy named Marcus, who had recently lost his mother and was living in foster care. His wide eyes and hesitant questions took her back to the night she met Elon at the bus stop. She saw herself in him, the fear, the uncertainty, but also the flicker of hope. "Marcus," she said after one of their sessions, kneeling to his level, "do you know what makes you special? It's not just your ideas or your curiosity. It's the way you keep trying, no matter what. That's going to take you far. I promise." The boy's face lit up with a shy smile, and in that moment, Mia understood what Elon must have felt when he chose to help her. She was paying forward the kindness and belief that had changed her life. Meanwhile, Elon kept tabs on Mia's progress, though he gave her the space to grow independently. They stayed in touch regularly, their conversations evolving from mentor and mentee to something more equal. Mia often sought his advice on navigating the complexities of the professional world, and Elon valued her fresh perspective on projects at SpaceX and Tesla. Their bond was no longer just about what he had done for her. It was about mutual respect and shared goals. When Mia graduated, Elon attended the ceremony, sitting quietly in the audience to avoid drawing attention. As she walked across the stage to accept her degree, their eyes met briefly, and she gave him a small, grateful smile. It was a moment of quiet pride for both of them, a testament to how far she had come and the strength she had found within herself. After the ceremony, Mia approached him, holding her diploma tightly. "I wouldn't be here without you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Elon shook his head. "You'd be here, Mia. I just helped you see it." In the years that followed, Mia's work gained recognition on a global scale. She started her own company, focusing on accessible technology for underserved communities, and launched a foundation to support foster kids interested in STEM. Her story continued to inspire others. But for Mia, the greatest success wasn't the accolades or the recognition. It was knowing she'd taken the chance Elon had given her and turned it into something meaningful. Mia had found her place in the world, not because of where she came from, but because of the determination and kindness that had carried her forward. And through it all, she never forgot the night at the bus stop when everything changed. Years after stepping out of the shadows of her past, Mia had become a force to be reckoned with. Her journey from a foster child to a celebrated engineer was nothing short of extraordinary. But to Mia, her greatest accomplishment wasn't the accolades or the lucrative opportunities that came her way. It was the chance to give back, to become the person she had once desperately needed. Mia's work wasn't just about innovation, it was about accessibility. She had founded Nova Futures, a tech company that focused on creating affordable solutions for underserved communities. One of her first major projects was a solar-powered water purifier, designed to be easy to assemble and cheap to produce. It wasn't a flashy invention, but it saved lives in areas where clean drinking water was a luxury. Stories of its impact began pouring in. Villages where children no longer suffered from waterborne diseases, schools where attendance improved because students weren't sick. For Mia, these stories meant more than any award. Elon was one of the first to congratulate her when the purifier won an international engineering prize. "You're making a difference," he told her during a call. "This is exactly what I knew you were capable of." Mia smiled, but her thoughts drifted back to her younger self. The girl who had cried alone at a bus stop, unsure if she even had a future. "It's because you believed in me," she said softly. "Now, it's my turn to believe in others." And she did. Alongside running her company, Mia launched the Illuminate Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting foster children interested in STEM. The foundation provided scholarships, mentorship programs, and access to workshops and internships. Mia personally mentored dozens of kids, taking them under her wing the way Elon had done for her. She saw herself in their questions, their doubts, and their hunger for a chance to prove themselves. One of the kids who stood out was Marcus, the boy she had met during a visit to her old high school. At only 13, he was building small gadgets out of discarded parts he scavenged from the local junkyard. His creativity and determination reminded Mia of her own late-night tinkering sessions with her dad. She invited Marcus to one of her foundation's summer camps, where he thrived, creating a prototype for a low-cost device that could detect gas leaks in homes. When he demonstrated it to Mia, his face lit up with pride, and she felt a familiar swell of joy. "You're going to do incredible things, Marcus," she told him. "I can't wait to see where you go." But giving back wasn't always easy. Mia often struggled with balancing her work and her nonprofit, and the emotional weight of hearing the kids' stories sometimes left her feeling drained. There were moments when the enormity of the challenges they faced seemed insurmountable. She would think back to her own journey, remembering the time she had felt like giving up, and remind herself why she was doing this. One evening, as she prepared for a gala fundraiser for the Illuminate Foundation, she found herself reflecting on how far she'd come. The event was being held in a grand ballroom, filled with donors and supporters who believed in her vision. Standing backstage in her formal gown, Mia felt a mix of pride and disbelief. She hadn't just survived, she had built something that mattered. Elon arrived just before the event began, slipping in through a side door to avoid the press. He smiled when he saw Mia, offering her a warm hug. "You've built something incredible," he said. "I'm proud of you." The event was a success, raising enough funds to expand the foundation's programs nationwide. But for Mia, the highlight of the evening came during a quiet moment after the speeches. Marcus approached her with a shy smile, holding a small box. Inside was a simple circuit board with a message engraved on the back. "Thank you for believing in me." Mia's eyes filled with tears as she hugged him. "This is the best award I've ever received," she said, her voice thick with emotion. As the night wound down, Mia stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. Elon joined her, and they stood in comfortable silence for a moment. "Do you ever think about that night at the bus stop?" she asked finally. "Every time I see you succeed," Elon replied. "That moment changed my life too, Mia. You reminded me why I do what I do." Mia nodded, her heart full. "I want to be that for others," she said. "I want them to know that even when everything feels lost, there's still hope." And she was. Through her work, her foundation, and the lives she touched, Mia had become a beacon of hope for so many. She wasn't just the girl Elon had helped. She was a leader, a mentor, and a testament to the power of resilience and kindness. Her journey wasn't over, but she knew one thing for certain. She was exactly where she was meant to be. It was a quiet autumn evening when Mia decided to revisit the place where it had all begun. The bus stop looked smaller now, tucked beneath the same flickering streetlight that had illuminated her tears so many years ago. The bench was still there, its paint peeling and the metal rusted from years of rain and neglect. Yet, for Mia, it held an almost sacred significance. She had asked Elon to join her, and he had agreed without hesitation. When his sleek car pulled up, the contrast between his polished presence and the worn-down surroundings couldn't have been more striking. But Elon stepped out with his usual casual demeanor, his hands tucked into the pockets of his coat as he approached her. "Feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?" he said, sitting beside her on the bench. Mia smiled, her breath visible in the cool evening air. "It feels like another world. I used to sit here thinking the whole world had forgotten about me." Elon turned to her, his expression soft. "And now, the whole world knows your name. Funny how things turn out." She laughed lightly, but didn't respond right away. Instead, she stared at the empty street in front of them, her thoughts drifting back to the scared little girl she had been. "Do you remember what you said to me that night?" she asked after a moment. Elon tilted his head, considering. "I remember telling you that you were brave, that you didn't feel it, but you were." Mia nodded. "I didn't believe you then, but you were right. It wasn't bravery like in the movies, it was just surviving. Hanging on because I didn't know what else to do." "Sometimes," Elon said quietly, "that's the bravest thing of all." They sat in silence for a while, the sounds of distant traffic filling the air. Finally, Mia turned to him, her voice tinged with emotion. "You saved my life, you know." Elon shook his head. "No, Mia, you saved yourself. I just gave you a little push." She didn't argue. Perhaps it was true, but without that push, she might never have found her way. The thought made her chest tighten, a mix of gratitude and bittersweet reflection. As they were about to leave, Mia noticed something out of the corner of her eye. A young boy sitting on the edge of the bench across the street. His head was down, his shoulders hunched under a too-thin jacket, and in his hands was a worn backpack, clutched tightly like a lifeline. Mia's heart caught in her throat. She rose instinctively, her footsteps soft as she crossed the street. The boy didn't look up until she was only a few feet away. "Hey there," she said gently, crouching to his level. "Are you okay?" The boy startled slightly, his wide eyes meeting hers. He hesitated before shaking his head. "I'm fine," he mumbled, though the quiver in his voice betrayed him. Mia smiled warmly, recognizing the fear, the walls he was trying to keep up. "I used to sit on a bench like this," she said. "I felt like I had no one in the world to turn to. But you know what? Someone came along and showed me that wasn't true." The boy blinked at her, his grip on his backpack loosening slightly. "Really? Really," Mia said. "What's your name?" "Tyler," he whispered. "Well, Tyler, how about we get you something warm to eat and figure out how to help?" She glanced back at Elon, who was watching from a distance. He nodded, his approval clear. "You're not alone, Tyler. I promise." The boy hesitated, but eventually gave a small nod, the fear in his eyes softening into something like hope. Mia extended a hand, and Tyler took it, clutching it tightly as if afraid she might let go. As they walked back toward Elon, Mia felt a wave of emotion wash over her. It wasn't just about helping Tyler, it was about completing the circle that had started on this very street. She had been in his shoes once, and now she had the power to be the person she had needed back then. Later that evening, after ensuring Tyler was safe and warm, Mia and Elon sat together once more, this time in a cozy cafe. Tyler had fallen asleep in the booth beside them, his face peaceful. "You didn't have to do that," Elon said, though his tone was filled with pride. "I did," Mia replied, "because you did it for me." Elon smiled, a rare softness in his expression. "You've come full circle, Mia. You're not just succeeding. You're making the world better, one life at a time. Mia looked at Tyler, then back at Elon. Because that's what you taught me. You didn't just save me. You showed me what kindness can do. And I'm never going to stop paying that forward. The story ended not with fanfare or applause, but with the quiet, profound power of one life touching another. Mia had come full circle, but her journey was far from over. There were more lives to change, more hands to hold, and more benches where hope could find its way back into someone's heart.